Sure.
Now, back to where we were talking about association, management association.
Yes.
Will that be open to anyone who lives in that watershed or just these new projects?
The thought was that we needed to start it out using the EPA projects, the current projects, and the new round projects. And then if all of that works okay, then we bring other people in. I think part of the worry was that we know for sure that all three of these new phases, they all work okay, except for Kevin's. And when we bring new people on, we're going to have to figure out how to inspect those to make sure that we're not bringing on a lemon.
Well, that's what I was getting at. In your bylaws, or you say that the system's not more than 2 years old, or whatever.
We say that if somebody hasn't currently had their system maintained by a provider, which could be somebody from the very first time, they haven't done anything, and they decide they want to come on, they've got to go out and pay somebody to inspect it, and it has to pass inspection, and then they can join up. So we may do that with people who
maybe
we may follow the same.
Have good system, may have somebody else contracted maintain them, but maybe it's better to get it within this system if it's a workable system.
Right. It would certainly save more money.
Yeah.
And you think that the money you have in this fund here from the grant and everything, probably they would want those used for the systems that they originally granted the funds for,
Well,
things like that.
probably. All that extra, what's going to be seed money, is from money that was a match. It's not any of the federal dollars. It's all matched. It's HOBET money and community money. Some of it's from the community members who actually paid some money for the systems. So yeah. Okay, so that page talks about the where we are with those 20 projects. The next one sort of shows you what's happening with the finances. This is a copy of the requisition form that we use that I've sort of tweaked a little bit. You'll see on the second column over where it says approved budget, the subtotal was $718,000. That was the total amount that DEP granted us. Of that, we have drawn down $587,000. We have $131,000 left. And just this week, we've transferred $31,000 from the contingency up to construction for that final home. And I tried to figure out today, sort of the average of what we were spending for the sample analysis and the administrative costs. And we're going to be real close to spending all of it, if not on over just a little. So I think we're all right. At one point, I thought we were going to have extra money to spend, but I don't think so. And the last page that's clipped together is a copy of the jobs report. Because this is stimulus money, we have to do a monthly jobs report to the DEP, and they send it into the feds. The project's created 4 jobs and sustained 5 jobs. And over a 9-month period, we've had a total payroll of just over $102,000. Most of that is money that has gone to the contractor at prevailing wage. So that you can see here the kind of breakdown that we've got, the jobs that the commission created, the jobs that T.R. Davis has created. If we get the new money, we won't have to do the jobs report for that. The next page you have is the 27 homes we're looking at for this new phase 3. Like I said, the big thing we're trying to figure out is what's going to be direct discharge and what's going to be in-ground. We had hoped to have more in-ground. At this point, it looks like there are just going to be 3 possibilities for that. It's a function of the fact that the water tables are so high in the area and people don't have enough room to put in lots of piping. So even though we keep trying to stick it back in the ground, the rules of the state, for the technology they got, won't let us. I keep trying to convince them that if you could put it in the creek, you ought to be able to put it in the ground. If it's good enough to go in the creek, can't we just put it back in the ground? But haven't bought anything yet.
We got a new sanitarian, I noticed, working.
Yes, Alicia has helped us. She went out, she's been out a couple times with us. Seems real good. She's a trooper. She crawled through about a quarter-mile culvert with me, trying to find a place where we had some discharge coming out, so. Okay, the last two things, the commission had asked us to look at a well water analysis kind of program. Here's some ideas for it. There are three possible different parameters that we might look at. I think the first two are probably the most important. One is that you can measure the amount of chloride that's in well waters, and that would, if there was a lot of chloride showing up, it would be an indicator of whether gas drilling had impacted the water system. Another thing to measure is sulfate in the well, and that would be an indicator of coal mine happening. And then, of course, we continue drilling E. coli, which would be an indicator of human and animal sewage getting into the well system. I guess the thought would be the experience in the left fork is that really people's wells did not have a whole lot of E. coli in it. But I could see how if you were having a lot of blasting going on, it might be shattering some of the protective stuff in the well, so you might find more E. coli. I'm not sure. These tests, these are just pretty preliminary tests, but they give you some sense of what was happening. If we went with biochem testing, there are people who are doing our septic testing. Their prices are pretty reasonable, $10 for the first two and $16 for the second one. They're not a certified drinking water lab, and that means in order to be a certified drinking water lab, your septic wastewater can't be tested in the same building as your water. They can do it, but they only have one building. My thought was if we're not trying to do this as any kind of legal thing, if we're just trying to get some ideas, then this would give us some ideas. Some ideas for how we might go about doing it would be we'd identify some watersheds and some homes and just go in and do samplings. And we might do 3 different samplings at 3 different seasons, because sometimes you can have changes depending on what season of the year. The key kind of thing would be to sample as close to the well as we could get, rather than sampling in the faucets in the house, because there would be more chances with the pipes with some kind of influence that we wouldn't want. So the closer we could get to the well itself, the better it would be. So I don't know whether the commission wants to think about this or whether you want me to find out some more things about it.
The objective was to basically people who aren't receiving public water to try to have data that would
Try to
help
have
support.
data that would help support,
Try to get
folks
monies,
really.
you know.
So that's what we talked about in the meetings, wasn't it, Chris? The fact that when we put together proposals to go after projects, that if our applications included this kind of data
Right.
that showed that people's water wasn't safe, that maybe it would help us move to the front of the line when it came to funding.
You got something?
You had some data?
No, not that.
You've already done this, great. Does that make sense from your standpoint?
That does make sense. I mean, you know, I'm not necessarily an expert when it comes to that part of it, but it would make sense possibly. That'd just be, you know, one more bullet in the magazine. You know, one more little bit of ammunition for us. But to go to IJDC, that we could show the water's bad
I mean, the thing,
without pointing fingers.
right, right. You would-
So we look at the water
Say it
plans
is.
that we have almost ready to adopt and pick out some of those areas
Some
that
of
we,
those areas.
so we know where there's needs.
I was thinking if you looked at maybe like 3, 4, 5 different areas, whatever you might consider the next 5 funding
That we
cycles you
didn't
want
have
to go
fund
for.
for.
And do those, and then you could prioritize it even more based upon the one that had the worst waters.
Yeah, I'd say look at the water plan and get with the PSDs, you know, what are the next 2 projects you plan to do, or the next project you plan to do, and then let's look at that, how many people what the possibilities of doing the water testing, but it needs to be current information, so I think we need to coordinate that with the CSDs as to when your next project or two.
Okay, maybe I could work too with Chris
Oh,
on
yeah,
this stuff.
yeah.
And come back with just some ideas about how many homes we might do. I don't know whether we'd want to do every single home, we could just sort of do a,
Well, it might be good to make a call to someone, the health department or IJDC, somebody that's gonna look at it, we're gonna be presenting this data to, and say, what kind of data do we need in order to convince someone that there's a need out there based on the quality of the water? And so maybe they could tell us how many homes ever so often, one per mile or whatever it might be, 5 per mile. I don't know if any of us have any idea what we might be looking for, but something that would be defining probably.
I don't think it matters if it's not a certified drinking water.
at this point.
No, because I don't think that we're moving in the direction of trying to gather data to sue anybody. I just think it's to strengthen the ability of water.
Yeah, it's probably a better way to do it this way.
Well, I know, this whole wastewater thing started because we had some data.
Yeah.
That's what drove the whole thing. Okay, well, I'll work with IJDC, what is that?
Industrial Job Council or something.
Okay.
Infrastructure and Joint Development
Yeah.
Council.
Oh, okay.
Chris
All right,
Jarrett.
all right, I know Chris Jarrett. I sat in a meeting.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the office.
Very good. Okay, and the last thing, I just wanted to update you. We did have the County Health Summit on the 26th of last month. We didn't have a huge attendance, but I think we had like 17 people. Two of the commissioners were able to attend. I thought it was a good meeting. There were a lot of good ideas. What you've got are the suggestions that came up at the meeting. One of the things we did was brainstorm with the community people who were there. The newspaper covered it. They shared suggestions in the last issue. The idea is that people who were at the meeting would go back to their organizations, share the suggestions, and the organizations would adopt something by the 1st of December. That would become their goal for the next 12 months, and we would check in with them and see what happens, and then we'd sort of celebrate the things that happened. So my hope is that people will actually go back now, and that it won't just be a meeting where people talk a lot, but there'll be some action from it.
Yeah, some juncture, my responsibility will be taking on something here at the courthouse.
I've been noticing that more and more as I come across. And you're right, I see some of the same people every time I cross the street.
I'm worried about their health as well as other issues.
Yes. All righty, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.
Sure.
I need a motion to print the bills and submit it for payment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, being all yes vote, motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the exoneration orders as submitted by treasurer and assessor.
Second.
Motion second, being all yes vote, motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the appointments, wills, and settlements as submitted for approval by Donald C. Whitten, clerk.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all yes, motion carries.
I need a motion to appoint the following to the McCorkle Community Center Board of Directors: C. Scott Pauley, Leanne Brown, Doris F. Sharp, Jennifer Forzetting, and Angie McCormick.
How many people total applied?
There's 5.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all yes, motion carries. I think our plan will be, just for information's sake, is when we send these people a letter saying that they have been appointed, in that letter, we'll try to put a date, time for a meeting that we can go as a commission and meet with them and talk about how they may want to run the program there and how they may want to coordinate with us and get things done, what our expectations are. So we will try to formalize this a little bit, probably in the next couple of weeks.